The Goffstown Zoning Board is an elected board of 5 members and up to 5 appointed alternates. Currently, the board does have its 5 regular members and 1 alternate. If anyone's interested in serving on the ZBA, please contact Town Hall for more information, please. The board has a posted agenda for each meeting and tends to follow the items in order. The board will open the public hearing on an application and receive testimony from the applicants, the abutters, and affected parties, and to ask questions about the request. The public hearing will then be closed and the board will enter into a deliberative session to discuss the merits of the appeal. For each application, the board will decide to approve with conditions, deny, or continue to a later meeting. You're welcome to watch the deliberations this evening, or you can contact Town Hall to get the results. For an applicant, please pay very attention to this tonight because it's very pertinent. For an applicant's request to be approved, there must be an affirmative vote of at least 3 board members. An applicant can request a continuance if there's not a full 5-member board to act on an application. That is the case for every single application tonight. 2 of the applications will have a 4-member board. The other 2 will have a 3-member board because one of us needs to recuse ourselves from those applications. So please consider if you want to continue your application or not. If you choose to still go forward, that's any denial or any vote that is not in your favor is the makeup of the board for tonight is not a reason for a rehearing. And if you are aggrieved by a decision by the ZBA tonight, you have the right to appeal to the Superior Court. However, before appealing to the Superior Court, you must request a rehearing with this board to preserve your right to appeal. Rehearing requests must be filed within 30 days of the decision and state all reasons why the decision was unlawful or unreasonable. And failure to request a rehearing may forfeit your ability to appeal to Superior Court. I'm going to ask the board to introduce themselves, and we'll start over here with Derek.
Derek Horn, Town Administrator, serving as Staff Liaison.
Jason Cody, member.
I'm Gail Lebrecht, Chair.
And I'm Lynn Stewart, Vice Chairman.
Denise Langley, member.
And I'm going to ask everybody to please silent your phones during the course of the meeting. And as you can see by looking at the agenda, it has the potential to be quite long. So we're going to ask everybody to please be patient. Please don't interrupt conversations with your chatter in the room. And if there are any applicants that want to continue their hearing to another date, please let me know. Benners, I'm going to ask each one of you individually, just so that we can have it on the record. Mr. and Mrs. Benner, do you choose to go forward tonight with?
Yes.
You'll have a 3-member board.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have the NAWA application. Mr. NAWA, do you choose to go forward tonight with you'll have a 4-member board? Do you choose to go forward tonight, or do you want to continue your application to another evening?
I think I'll continue.
You're going to continue?
Yeah, from 5 minutes.
Okay. Can we have a motion for that, please?
I'll move that we continue the Norway hearing to the next meeting of the board on December 7th.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have the motion to continue the Norway application to December 7th, and it will be here at Town Hall, December 7th at 7 o'clock, and we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Any abstaining or against? Okay, so motion carries. Okay, Mr. Norway, we will see you in December. Thank you. We did get a request from the Hemley application, which is, it's here someplace. They had requested to be continued because they would otherwise only have a 3-member board. So can I have a motion for that, please?
A motion to move them to the next meeting on December 7th.
December 7th?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Me too. Any against or abstaining? Motion carries. Okay. And then Benners chose to go forward. Then we have the Luke Roy application. Do you choose to go forward?
Today, yes.
With four board members to hear your application and vote? Okay. And the last one is Matthew Allery. Is he here?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you choose to go forward, or do you choose to continue?
Yes, I'd like to go forward, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and then also, I do want to let you know that tonight does have a potential to be a long meeting, and I just said that. Per our policies and procedures, we don't go beyond 11 o'clock unless we have a vote. So we are going to, we will continue applications if needed after we start them, so that each applicant can have an opportunity to be heard tonight. And so we just need to just keep on going without many interruptions and stuff, so we can get as much done as possible and hopefully make everybody happy time-wise at least. Okay, so let's see, the first application, pardon? Oh, yes, minutes, thank you. First is minutes for the meeting of October 5th. Do we have a motion to approve?
A
Or
motion to approve the minutes as written.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against, or any corrections, any abstentions? Motion carries. Oh, that's 4. Thank you, Jason. Okay, the next application, is there anything else I was supposed to say? Did I get it all?
I think you got it all.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I do.
So much tonight that to remember, I've got to be sure. The next application is Gatine Benner, and I am going to recuse myself from that application, so our vice chair is going to tend to that. As I recuse myself, I am not going to leave the table, only because I am also recording secretary, so I'm just putting this part aside. I won't participate, and I will be typing away. It's yours, Lynn.
All right. Good evening, everyone. As I said before, my name is Lynn Stewart. I'm vice chair of the board. I'd just like to announce some ground rules for this hearing. The earlier proceedings in this have been both lengthy and contentious, so in hope of things going smoothly, here's the way we'd like to conduct it. In the interest of fairness to the several other applicants who are still waiting to be heard on tonight's agenda, the public hearing on this case is going to be time limited. We'd like to finish presentations on this by around 8:45 p.m. If we are still going at that point, this hearing will be continued until December 7th. Participants in this hearing are respectfully asked to keep their remarks pertinent to what's being considered and to keep them brief in consideration of other people who may want to speak. Regarding the several issues that are posed in Appellant Benner's extensive filing, New Hampshire RSA 676, subsection 5, Roman numeral 3, provides that the granting of conditional or special use permits is delegated to the planning. If it is delegated to the planning board, then the planning board's decision cannot be appealed to the Board of Adjustment, but may be appealed directly to the Superior Court as provided under RSA 677:15. There are a number of issues that I intend to, before we open the hearing to the public, I'm going to go through the board. We have to separate the matters that are this board's jurisdiction from the matters that must go to Superior Court. We will deal with that before we open the hearing to the public. The gallery is asked, as Gail Lebrecht said, please mute your cell phones. Keep your conversations to a minimum. If you need to talk, please go into the hallway and shut the door. Any questions for the board will come through, be addressed through the chair. And there will be no colloquy between people in the gallery and someone speaking to the board. thank you very much for being polite and considerate to one another and the board. And now, before we begin the public portion of the hearing, the three members of the board who will be voting tonight are Denise Langley, Jason Cody, and myself. So I'm going to go through the list of issues that were identified in the staff report, which I'm presuming you have all read at this point, and the decision will be as to whether they are zoning matters that we need to address tonight, or they are matters that need to go to the Superior Court. On point number 1, and again referring to our staff report, there is no listing for a laundromat in section 3.11, the table of principal uses of the Goffstown zoning ordinance, and it does not fit under section D, the services, financial, medical, or professional small offices under 2,000 square feet. What is the feeling of the board as to whether that is a zoning matter that we should address?
So, in my research, it is up to the zoning enforcer to determine the classification. But I think after reading all the files, I would not object to listening to that item.
Okay,
I wouldn't
Jason?
either.
And neither would I, so that will
Okay.
be the first item that we will consider
Okay.
tonight. Okay, the next point, the planning board, without proper authorization, as the ZBA only has authority in grandfather cases as such, to approve the alteration of an existing non-conforming ranch structure, altering driveways, adding new driveways, etc. Is that, again, something that is a zoning issue that we should consider?
So, the problem that I think I have with this particular one is that I don't know that this was never brought to the zoning board for approval. So there isn't, I don't know what we're voting against because there's no application to make a change. So if they don't knock down the building, the garage as indicated, then that would be a violation of the zoning ordinance. But I don't have a plan for that. I don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, I think the alteration of a building is if you were to rebuild it in a different format, it would have completely rebuilt it. They tore it down and rebuilt it. All they're doing is taking off a garage. So you have to determine if you think that's altering the building, not to stay into the grandfather.
Oh, I see.
I'm puzzled because this building has existed since before zoning in Goffstown. I believe zoning came in 1961. And indeed it's grandfathered for the use, but the zone is commercial.
Right. And the abutting property may be a residential house, but it's not zoned residential.
I believe the abutting one is
Small business.
RSBO2. I would like to, I think that this needs to be discussed further
Okay.
myself.
Yeah.
I would.
I had a question mark on that one, so I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Jason?
I'm in the,
Okay, now are we both okay with doing these things as consensus without a formal
Yes,
vote?
yes.
Okay, moving on to the, just want to make sure I haven't skipped a page here. Moving on to the next point cited in our staff report here regarding the location of the handicap accessible parking space, marked 3.
That, it needs to go to the Superior Court, it's not a zoning board issue.
.3.
Jason, all right, so on that one, we will not hear that tonight.
Excuse me, yeah, just for clarification, 2 things. We're having difficulty hearing you.
Right, you speak into the speakers, I'm not hearing a thing, honestly.
All right, let me,
Technically, I would
now,
ask-
is that better?
Yes,
Len, those microphones are for the television use, it's not,
No.
it doesn't
No.
project anything back there?
All
We'll
right,
just
well,
talk
let me attempt to project further. My apologies if there have been a problem. Are you able to hear me better now?
yes, thank you. Second point, just for clarification, if you're indicating that you believe something goes to Superior Court, I think it would be, clarify both parties, but you could explain why you think it's supposed to go to the Superior Court. Is it because it's strictly in the planning board purview? It's not a zoning issue? What's the reason why you feel it's going to Superior Court versus addressed here?
Well, I believe in, let me not, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Denise.
yeah,
I'm not
okay.
putting words in your
So,
mouth.
I mean, we rely on staff to do their homework, and it says conditional use permits granted by the board may be appealed to Superior Court.
Okay, so it's because it's a conditional use permit?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, now let us move down, continuing down the list, and these are things that are highlighted by our staff report as potentially, applicant Benner, point number 2, the planning board was not authorized to approve a conditional use permit on the above-mentioned property. In that case, the statute is very specific on these. Anything regarding a conditional use permit where issuance of conditional use permits is delegated to the planning board as it is, has to go to Superior Court if you wish to appeal it. It cannot be appealed to the zoning board. And I'll give you the I believe the citation on that is RSA too many papers, folks. Sorry about that. That is the one that was mentioned at first, RSA 676, Section 5, Roman numeral 3, which specifies anything regarding conditional use permits must be appealed to Superior Court. Unless Jason, Denise, or any,
No, I support that.
Yeah, I do too.
Can I ask permission to speak, seeing that the defendant, or whoever you call, the opposing person spoke before, okay?
he was posing questions to the board. If you're going to start in on the case, we need to finish this before we take your testimony on the case. This is our procedure, and we have to stick to it.
Well, because he
Well-
mentioned Superior Court, I did call Superior Court, and I did look up the rules. And before I can either go there, they told me I had to
Yeah,
come to the
which-
zoning board first. And also, it says here that I'm going by section 674.33, powers of the zoning board of adjustment. The zoning board of adjustment shall have power to hear and decide appeals if it is alleged that is an error, okay, in any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by an administrative official in the enforcement of any zoning ordinance adopted pursuant RSA 674.16. And these are all of my issues, okay, that I've described in my 9-page, okay, appeal has to do with ordinances. And I have listed the numbers specifically of the ordinances. So I disagree, okay, regarding the location of the handicap space, because that's part of the zoning, ordinances, that it cannot be on the property line. It has to meet that.
All right,
it has to-
now,
okay.
Ms. Benner, you're testifying on the case. I'm gonna have to stop you there because at this point, and I'm not going to there are superseding laws and there is a specific RSA that says anything with conditional use permits cannot be appealed to the zoning board of adjustment. We have to follow that statute. We may not like it, but that's what we have to follow. Oh, I'm going to continue, we're going to resume going through the list, and once we've finished the list and determined what issues we will hear tonight, then we'll get to your testimony. Thank you. All right, where did I leave off here? The next point also regards a conditional use permit. This was point number 3 on page 2, Ms. Benner's application. The proposed new driveway for the entrance on Hague Street that was approved as a conditional use is in violation of the original findings. Again, I don't see that we are able to consider that because it specifically relates to a conditional use.
I agree.
Jason? I agree.
All right. Moving on to the next point cited in our staff report. The planning board did not interpret parking spaces correctly, as is ridiculous to count stacking spaces that people use while washing their cars. I'm not quite sure how to treat this because, well, if you have a suggestion, Denise, I'm open to suggestion.
Well, the planning board has the authority to limit or to change the amount of parking. The application can request to minimize parking, and if they can sell their point of minimizing their parking, they have jurisdiction to do that. I've never seen that on a zoning board level.
I would also say that it seems to me this is getting into issues of site plan review that are the purview of the planning board and not matters of the zoning board.
The reference for that point too is that, I'm making an assumption, but that there must have been a conditional use permit by the planning board for that. And that falls under the conditional use permit. We can't do anything about that.
Go to the Superior Court.
And then I believe the final point that we need to ask here is regarding the entrance to the proposed laundromat to be on the side of the car wash, which has currently only 6 feet 4 inches from the entrance step to the right-hand turn. Once again, these issues seem to me to be issues of site plan review.
I would agree. When people come to this board to ask for anything, we never dictate where the doors go.
Right.
It's not in our purview. You hear me say that a lot.
Okay, so if,
There's point 1 and 2.
We did we talk point 4? Because I think it was out of order on the staff report, so that was the
Yeah, the
handicap
handicap
part.
parking.
Yeah.
And did we do point two, yeah, that's,
Yeah, well, I don't know.
so we have done them all in the staff report. Derek, do you have?
On the staff report, page 3 of 4.4, the handicap accessible parking, I would point out that the planning board's notice of decision that is dated from the meeting July 22nd, it says 7/22/21, conditional use permit under section 755, and they noticed 3 different items that the conditional use permit was approved for. One was driveway shall be located at least 125 feet from street intersections. So they granted a conditional use permit for that to be less than the 125 feet. They granted a conditional use permit for a driveway located at least 100 feet from other existing driveways for less than that, and they granted a conditional use permit for alternative parking arrangements. I would advise that the ADA question that's raised in the application deals with no off-street parking for any use in district shall be located within 5 feet of any side or rear lot lines, that the planning board approved a site plan, and they did not grant a conditional use permit to allow that. Rather, I do believe that that would be under your purview as an interpretation by the planning board of the zoning ordinance.
That's what I thought that we should be hearing that one.
So, I'm sorry, can you repeat
Point
that
4.
again? Can we hear that or not?
That my recommendation is the ADA, your question about the ADA parking spot being located within setbacks should be considered by the zoning board, but that would be.
4.
Yeah, top of page 3 of 4. All right, if Denise, Jason,
I think we should hear that one.
all right. So then we have 3 items that we will be taking up.
Could you just, for everybody's, let us know exactly what they are, so we
Okay.
all know what we're talking about this evening?
And for the benefit of the record, would you take a vote on any conditional use permit items that you will not be
Sure.
hearing?
All right.
Thank you.
First, to state for the record, what we will be hearing tonight will be the 3 items posed in Ms. Benner's application. Point number 1, questioning the fact that there is no listing for a laundromat in the table of principal uses. Point number 2, that the planning board did not have proper authorization to approve the alteration of an existing non-conforming ranch structure. And point number 4, that the handicap accessible parking space marked 3 on the property line is in violation of setbacks and restrictions. Those are the 3 items that we will be considering tonight.
I motion to approve that.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, regarding the items we will not be hearing tonight, to enumerate them, they all relate to conditional use permits, as outlined much better by Derek than myself. The conditional use permits, to permit an existing driveway access on Joffrey Street less than 125 feet from the intersection. The conditional use permit granted on September 9th to permit a new access to the existing lot for the proposed laundromat from Hague Street that is closer than 100 feet from another existing driveway. And point number 3, that the new driveway on Hague's, Eric, what was the?
So they made a separate decision on September 9th, but it was, they granted a conditional use permit for the Hague Street entrance.
All right, and that is the third item that will be required to go. The other items that we will add to that list are the point number 5 regarding the planning board's interpretation of parking spaces, which is, again, a matter, I believe, of site plan administration. And the last point regarding placement of the entrance to the proposed laundromat. Those are the items that we will not be considering tonight.
I motion to take those off the agenda for this evening because we will not be hearing them.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
That satisfied all of the points, right? We didn't miss anything?
Yes, yes.
All right, and with that, having clarified exactly what it is we will be considering tonight, Ms. Benner, you're free to present your case. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Gaby Benner. I live on 12 Joshua Street. I live adjacent to the car wash, and I'm less than 100 feet from them, okay? I'm not an official abutter, I guess, but I live less than 100 feet from them, and I'm closer than Rite Aid and also the bank that is considered abutters, okay? And first of all, I would like to object to all the things, okay, for the record, that you're not looking at this evening, because I'm here under the Zoning Board Powers of New Hampshire, Section 674.33, okay? And first of all, I'd like to state that this project is contrary to public interest, as 135 plus people signed against this petition back in 2018 and again in 2021, all right? The spirit of the ordinance is not observed, okay, as too much is missing. There's too many feet requirements from all the required setbacks, from intersections, from driveways, and this new project doesn't even have its own exit, okay? Not enough parking, having shared parking with vacuum spots, okay? And combining stacking spots and bay spots while washing your car, and including those as parking, okay? Our ordinances are not meant to include these things. This is over the top and ridiculous, okay? And it's not because they're misappropriating this under a conditional use. It doesn't even meet the conditional use. And also, they didn't state the proper footage away from driveways. It's not 125 feet, okay? It's a mistake they made. It's supposed to be 200 feet because Mass Road is an arterial
Ms.
road.
Benner,
Okay,
Ms.
so
Benner.
it's an error, and it goes
If I may,
back.
if I may stop you for a moment, you're trying to relitigate the entire proceeding before the planning board, before this board. This is an appeal of a decision that the planning board has rendered. What are the reasons that you consider their decision to be in error, unfair, etc.? Please speak to the decision, not to the entire, try to relitigate the entire case again at this point, because that's not, we're here to hear an appeal.
Okay, well, this
Denise?
is part of my appeal.
I think it would be a little smoother for everybody if she approached each item separately, so that we don't get intertwined in other items that we decided that we're not hearing. So if we could keep it precise and start with, the first one is classification.
Okay.
So if we can go in that direction, I think it's gonna make it a lot easier for everybody to follow and understand.
Okay.
Would-
Well, I'd like to finish with my section 674.33 first, because this is the reason why I'm here. And my application was pre-screened before I came here, and I did not get the extra information that you're giving to the board regarding the planning director's notes and stuff. I did not receive that. So that's new information, okay, that I have not received, because I didn't know that you were going to tell me that I cannot bring these things up when my application indeed was pre-screened by the zoning enforcement officer, who's not here anymore. I
Ms. Benner,
heard she just
please address the
resigned.
chair.
Okay. So anyhow, it is not fair to say, yes, come on in, we'll hear your appeal. You have, you have legitimate complaints, and it's going regarding the ordinances. I've written all the ordinances down, and now you're telling me, after it's been screened, and after I filled out this 9-page application with section 3, what I'm going against, and it is part of this 674.33, you're denying me my rights, and I already called Superior Court, and they told me it has to go through you folks first.
Please, Denise.
When somebody comes to the board, the zoning board, we determine if we're gonna listen to something. Is it pertinent to our decision? We voted on that. Instead of somebody making that decision, it came here to the board. We were able to vote if we were gonna listen to everything, some of the things, or none of them. And we felt that there were 3 topics that definitely pertain to our jurisdiction in zoning. Every town board has their own purview, and it's very important to keep those separate. And I think that if we can address these 3, it's gonna be a lot smoother. And just to let you know, there was somebody in the back with a hand raised for a while. You probably couldn't see.
I'm aware of
Okay.
that.
Wasn't sure. if you
Sir,
knew.
you'll be called on after Ms. Benner
Thank you.
finishes, but only one person at a time. Again, Ms. Benner, you cite state law books, but we're looking at a very specific statute that says matters of conditional use permits cannot be heard by this board.
Why are these items listed under ordinances? That I don't understand, okay? I'm appealing the ordinances that they did not adhere to. So because it's listed under an ordinance, it should be heard, because that is under my section of appeal that I have a right to.
You have a right to, and we're hearing the matters which this board has the purview to make decisions on. We cannot hear matters which statute specifically says must be appealed to the Superior Court. You have to come to the board to get a hearing. This will be your hearing. If you're not satisfied with the result, then a further appeal is your personal decision.
Also, I'd like to bring to your attention, the planning board gave you wrong information, that Mass Road is an arterial road, and instead of needing 125 feet from
We're
a
not-
driveway, it needs 200 feet.
Ms.
So
Benner,
there's wrong information.
Once again, you're trying to
Okay.
you're trying to relitigate your planning board case here. Again, please, and I think I would take Denise's suggestion, can we speak to the point, the first point that we raised here, the fact that there is no listing for a laundromat in the table of principal
Okay.
use. Is why do you feel that is either an error or unfair?
Okay, well, all right, we'll start with this, okay? A laundromat should not be listed under a small office not exceeding 2,000 square feet of general business and professional offices and healthcare practitioners, including healthcare patients. It doesn't even match, okay? It should be under a special exception, as the car wash is, okay? And special exception should be approved by the zoning board, like the car wash was, okay? And also, by borrowing things, the laundromat borrowing parking from the special exception car wash is going against what you folks had approved the car wash first. years ago. So this is another issue too. They're going against what you approved that original car wash for, under special exception, because they're taking away some of the parking spaces. So again, it shouldn't have even gone to the planning board, it should have came to you as a whole project to begin with, all right? So anyhow, so that goes along with the classification with the laundromat. A laundromat should be under its own section, Section D, because laundromats are high fire risk. They should be under special exceptions, only allowed in commercial-based district. Okay, we're residential 1 and residential office also. Residential 1 is Joffrey Street, and also residential office business is Hague Street. Okay, so we're all in the residential section. This commercial property does not abut commercial property, all right? It abuts residential. And it was the pictures, okay, that they're showing you of Rite Aid and Mast Road and all that is not accurate, okay? This is our residential homes, okay? This is how Hague Street looks, all right?
But we're not,
Okay, well, we're going with the classification of laundromats, okay? It shouldn't be under, okay, an office building, of course. A laundromat is not an office building. It goes against ordinances. It doesn't make sense, all right? So this is one thing that you said you would hear, all right? And also, I printed out a lot of information regarding laundromats. They're very dangerous. They cause like 15,000 fires a year. Clothes dryers are involved in 92% of all laundry room fires because the heat from the dryers get very hot and they ignite the lint. So definitely, this is not a thing that should go by residential property. It should be maybe in a strip mall. And this property is too small for this to handle. And also, it's going to depreciate our homes, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for us. We don't want the laundromat. So anyhow, so that would be that. And I took pictures, and I showed you, I believe in your package you should have pictures of lint, okay, how it looks like and it accumulates, all right? And again, it should not be listed as an office. It's not, okay?
but if I may stop you for a moment. The property is zoned commercial, correctly? Can we?
Yes.
And the residential use has been a grandfathered, non-conforming use for as long as zoning has existed in Goffstown. While you say this should, I have trouble. A laundromat, we have I believe, from what I saw of the planning board proceedings, the planning board classified it under the general businesses category. It has, laundromats having standard industrial classification. They're a legitimate business. You're not asking, I don't want to get into it, I just think you're asking someone who is the owner of a commercially zoned property.
It's not creating hardship for him, okay? Because that property's never been used for commercial. It's always been used as a residential home. And the price he paid for it reflects that back several years ago, all right?
We don't talk
So number
about money
one,
here in the board.
and also the lot is too small, okay, to have the parking that it's necessary, to have its own exit. It's just too small for that. So it doesn't belong there. Commercial use doesn't belong there. Also, if you look at the tax card, okay, the tax assessor himself also put the best and highest use is a residential single-family home, okay? That I brought, all right? I have, I brought the card, okay, because it doesn't fit in our neighborhood, all right? So if you see the card over here, this is the tax card you should have. It says highest and best use assumed to be single-family home with frontage on Hague Street. Because it doesn't meet the ordinances. It doesn't, okay? And this is why I'm here also. All right, so anyhow, the planning board didn't have proper authority to approve this. All right, and it's okay to talk about the grandfather clause, we said?
Well, let's stay on the classification question.
Okay.
One-
Would you
Once
take a
again-
vote on that? Do you think it fits in a small office?
We have to close the public hearing for us to vote on a matter of that, wouldn't we?
Mhm.
We're gonna have we have to close the public hearing.
Yeah, we
Or does the
need to
public have a right to
continue the
take their-
pub,
Do the
we
right-
need
do
to
they have-
continue the public hearing until all the matters are covered, then the board will deliberate and vote after the public hearing is concluded. We don't vote on things piecemeal as we go along, we wait to hear the
Okay, so you
entire
want me to finish
case.
my presentation here? All right, well, you left me only crumbs to talk about, which is very sad, okay? Oh, it's not reasonable. It's over the top, okay? And even the tax collector agrees with what I'm saying. Look at the card again. Best and highest use, okay? Single-family residence. All right, so what else can I talk about?
Well, please speak then if you feel you've finished on the classification quits.
Okay,
And
can
please,
open it to public.
please talk about the planning board acted without proper authorization regarding the grandfather clauses to approve the alteration. Denise?
But it makes sense when we have 3 specific ones to see if there's somebody else who wants to speak on the classification. And then we'll go to number 2 and do the same thing, or do you want to open the public at the end for everything? Just to keep things in line with what we're speaking
I think in
about.
terms of our thinking, I think Denise once again has a very good idea that if you would not mind, Ms. Benner, let me ask the audience if there is anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the specific point of the classification of the laundromat. Do I see a hand back there? Sir?
And we don't want repeats, right? We want new information? New information.
Can you,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not done with my spot, so I don't want to.
I'm not,
Okay, there's a,
Will be-
I am the attorney for the owner developer, so I certainly want to speak, but I don't know if you want me to speak in this section.
Given the fact that you have, you're a participant in this case, I think that we should perhaps hear from the members of the
That's fine.
public, and you will
That's
have
fine.
an
I'd like- I'd
opportunity.
get one segment at a time, I'm fine with that.
You will have an opportunity to respond at the end to it. Thank you. There was a couple of more hands back there. The lady in the second row on the end, and then you in the front row,
Can I
sir.
request just new information, please? Just new information?
Well, the lady on the second end of the row on the end is Kathy Hooten, W-H-O-O-T-E-N. I live on 112 Mountain Road, Goffstown, New Hampshire, and I have to say it's nice to be sitting back here on the zoning board level. I think there has been an administrative decision that was incorrectly made here. I do feel that this application should have, in the beginning, gone to the zoning board for the issues that are being addressed tonight. This is a unique parcel. It's zoned apparently commercial, surrounded by an RSBOD area. We have hundreds of neighbors who have signed a petition, yet none of them have the opportunity to come before this town and this board to voice why they feel this is an inappropriate classification of character of business that should be allowed to be here. At the planning board level, neighbors are not allowed to discuss the five requirements of a special exception. I believe because laundromat is not defined in our zoning ordinance, that we are not looking at doing a variance here, because there is no laundromat criteria. We need a special exception here. We needed that to have been considered prior to the planning board decisions, to give the neighbors the opportunity to come before this board and to bring their reasons why this doesn't belong in their neighborhood. I do feel that when you look at what is next door, which is a car wash, that type of business has a better characterization of that of a laundromat compared to a laundromat. They're almost on a similar type of character of business. They're not what I feel came in under general business at all. Because in some of the ordinances that I've been reading and some of the information I have read, the word small business appeared in both of those RSBOD descriptions. Unfortunately, this table only has it under one. But when they say general business, they don't go into like car washes, and they don't go into descriptions like that. What did they go into? They go into professional, healthcare, banking, and financial. Under the other table of use, when they say small business, they say general business and professional offices and healthcare practitioner, including outpatient care. When the RSBOD district was formed, it was formed not only in Pinardville, but it was formed in Goffstown. And it was formed in those areas where Steve Griffin saw that we needed to allow development in these areas, commercial development in these areas, but we needed to do it in such a way that conformed with the small housing, with the residents. At that point, we only had residential R1 or R1 usually, and commercial. And he found a great need that on this corridor, and it's stated in the corridor study, that we needed something that would allow commercial to come through, but in a small business character. Laundromat to me is not a small business character. I feel that the administrative error here was made in that it was not brought forward to this zoning board to distinguish that which it needs to do and to show, this isn't a tax preparer's office. This isn't a florist shop. This is a laundromat, which I feel is a really, really far stretch from that which I do feel Steve Griffin and this town voted for the change in this zoning to be RSBOD 1 and 2, was so that things like laundromats could not develop in this zone. This is a little piece of commercial that's set right in there because it was Brick Creek. And that's why it stayed that way. And that house was associated with the Brick Creek people. It's a very, very unique piece of commercial property. And I think it would be in the spirit of this town's ordinances for this to have gone in front of the zoning board. And therefore, that's where I stand on this. And that's why I've always thought on this. And most importantly, number one, it wasn't in the spirit of the ordinance. The spirit of the ordinance is that which is dictated by the RSBOD development. But in the spirit of the ordinance, it allows the neighborhood the opportunity to decide and talk about and discuss with you that which they want, and that's what they want or they don't want in their neighborhood. And that is the spirit of the ordinance we're missing here. We're missing the input that the neighbors, not just Gady, but the 180 other neighbors that were here in the beginning, were never allowed the right to speak to this town about this going in. And that's the point I want to make on this particular issue. I think that you should allow that opportunity. And I'd like to see you go forward in that opportunity and get this back on track where it really should be. Thank you very much for hearing me this time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your explanation. Mr. Benner?
Dana Benner, 12 Joffrey Street. I want to emphasize again what Kathy just brought up, and what was one of the first things that came out of you folks is this gentleman over here. And I'm sorry, sir, I don't know your name. I don't remember it. But he said that, what is this? I've never even seen this. This has never come before the zoning board. What we're talking about, and we're not talking about special exceptions, and I'm not going to say that. But some of the items that came up are zoning matters. I mean, you folks just said, yeah, we need to talk about this because these are zoning matters. Well, the planning board, members of the planning board asked outright, did you take this to the zoning board? Nope. Well, they got recommended to take to the zoning board. Obviously, they never took it to you folks. Yet the planning board was just doing a check mark, doing a rubber stamp on whatever they wanted to do. When obviously there are things that the zoning board needs to address. And the part of we the neighbors, and I've been there for over 30 years, and when I moved in, Brick Creek was the business that was there. And the people at Brick Creek used that house as their residence. That's where they lived. Brick Creek and the house were two separate matters. They're obviously it was probably all zoned commercial, but it was never ever used that. And I know you brought up the point that it was there before the zoning ever, whatever came into play. But it was part of our neighborhood. It was part of why we moved there. It was that neighborhood feel that everybody discussed things. And there was a time that when you could actually come to this town and voice your opinion, and people would actually listen. Now that house has been residential for over the 30 years that I've been there, and obviously before. It's surrounded by residential. These are our homes. We were never taken into consideration. We never had the opportunity to be part of this entire decision-making process. We were never able to come to the zoning board and say, we don't like this because. It's not just, oh, we don't want business. It was never us against them. We were always part of the decision-making process, and in this particular case, no one gave a rat's butt about our thoughts, our feelings, or our blood, sweat, and tears, and our way we raised our families in these dang houses. And now somebody comes in here and says, because it's commercial, we can do this. Without taking the proper steps, without even consulting the neighbors. I mean, I couldn't put a shed on my property without coming to you guys first and making sure it's zoned properly. You can't do that. Yet but they're doing it. And this is our opportunity. Yes, this is emotional, okay? This is an emotional thing for the residents that live there. At the end of the day, they go home to wherever they live, and it's all fine and dandy. We're the ones who have to put up with it. We wanted a say in this. No one's given us that. We're reaching out, doing whatever we can by the rules and the laws that are allowed for us to do it. We shouldn't have to come to this part. If people follow the rules as they are supposed to be made, when they do this, this probably wouldn't be here right now. They should have come to zoning first. But no, it's every planning board rubber stamped it, and the way they rubber stamped it, it's violating the exception that you guys made, not you guys, but the zoning board made when the car wash was put in. They're altering it, which makes them in violation of the rules that you guys set forth. They threw it in your face, and the planning board rubber stamped it. Now, this is what we're here for. That is not a laundromat. That is a house. It's part of our neighborhood. I can't set up a business in my house. It's a house. For God's sake, it's a house. It's always been a house. The car wash is one thing, because that was Brickcrete. That was the original Brickcrete. Okay, so it's always been a business there. Okay, fine. The house is a house, and it's affecting us emotionally, financially, and you should be in our house sometime. No one sleeps because it's just nerve-wracking. We were never consulted. They're in violation of what you guys set forth as a rule. Please take that into consideration when you guys are discussing it further. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks, sir. Any others in the audience wishing to speak on the point of classification?
Can I just add on to mine, please?
Please come up, Ms. Wooten.
What I would like you to do, I'm trying to look for it right now on my tables, but what I would request that you do is I would request that you would consider bringing the application in under car washes, which needs a special exception in a commercially zoned property. And that, I'm just saying that is where I feel it should be. Again, giving the opportunity of the zoning board to look at it and allow the neighborhood and the spirit of the ordinance to stand.
Thank you. All right, here. Sir?
I won't say much, but I've been to 8, 9, 10 meetings now, so everybody pretty much knows what we say.
You have to say who you are.
I'm Robert Scarborough. I live on 3 Hague Street, right across from the laundromat. It's going to be noisy. My windows are right in the front. My driveway is right where they're going, across the driveway, and it's not 100 feet. It's supposed to be 100 feet, and it's not.
22 or 27 feet.
Yeah,
Please,
exactly.
Please, Ms. Benner, let Mr.
But she's right.
Scarborough speak.
I saw her outside measuring, and it's like 22 feet. It's not 100 feet. It's supposed to be 100 feet.
Supposed to be 200.
Well, whatever it
What?
is.
I think she shouldn't.
Anyway, we've got a lot more kids in the neighborhood now. We've just got 3 more kids in the neighborhood. They're always playing out in the street, in the driveways, and there's going to be a lot of cars coming through there. And there's one exception I do not like. On the middle, between the car wash and the house, there's a driveway that just pulls out. Last Saturday, somebody pulled out, and another car just rear-ended him really bad. And the car was totaled. That is a dangerous right-hand corner on that, she can point it out for you. It's very dangerous. There's no stop sign, there's nothing. And this is going to be handicapped right here in front where the laundromat is. And all these people are gonna be handicapped coming out of there. They're not gonna be looking left and right. And then they're gonna pull out and they're gonna get smashed. Because once the light goes, everybody wants to fly out of there. You got more businesses coming in there. You got Pizza Domino's just moved in. There's got a beer place coming in there now. Mass Road is a nightmare. You guys don't live on Mass Road. You don't know what traffic we go through. I'm handicapped myself with my kidneys. And I have to go to a lot of doctor's appointments, and sometimes I can't even get out of the street. I have to take my life in my own hands just to pull out into the street. So basically, that's just what I want to say. I do not want a laundromat there. I have said it millions of times. We've got thousands of names. The people don't want it. My whole street don't want it. People are sick of coming to the meetings. They won't come anymore because it's the same thing over and over. Oh, we're going to have another meeting. We're going to have another meeting. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, sir. Any others before we move on?
Do you need the attorney to come up now? Listen to both sides, or?
Are you willing, sir, to wait until we've concluded all the sections, or would you like to
I make an
respond section by
If I can
section?
make an observation, I think it's an excellent idea to do one at a time, because this is all blending into the same rehash over and over again. I'm not discounting what you guys are saying. I'm just saying it's the same thing we've heard in these innumerable meetings, and it's not being focused on one item. And I think it would be clearer for the board and the public if we could focus the yin-yang of one item at a time.
I agree.
And I would concur also.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It's
Thought
just gonna
that's
make
what
it a
we're-
lot easier to keep things in place.
I thought that's what we had decided to do, so.
All right, would you, Ms. Benner, if you wish to relinquish, we'll let the attorney for the developer speak on this, then you will return to the chair for the next point
Okay,
in.
so we're still on the same point. Does a laundromat fit under an office space? Okay, so we're still on that, just.
Well, and that is.
Okay, and I'm gonna leave my papers up here, is that okay? Okay.
We'll let Attorney Sullivan speak
This is
on
mine.
behalf of his client, and then you can return to the chair to speak on
Okay, great.
the point.
It's Attorney Andy Sullivan with me, Eric Mitchell, engineer surveyor for this. First, a couple clarifications. This is a commercial zone, period. Okay, it's in the commercial zone. There is no special exception required. Okay, the abutting lot on Hague Street is in the RSBO2 zone. Okay, it's not a residential zone, it's RSOB2 zone. Okay, section 3.11D5 in the table talks about a business use. It's a medical professional, it's a business use. Section 3.1F4 talks about services. It mentioned as examples barbershop, hairdresser, things like that, but they're services. We maintain that this is a service. You cannot have, if you had a zone ordinance that mentioned every conceivable business that could emerge, you would go on more than the IRS code. But this is a service. It's a service providing laundry services. Okay? Section 3.3 says if a classification of use is not specified, it could go to the zoning code enforcement officer. As part of the planning review process, the plan went to the zoning code enforcement officer. Okay, as part of the overall planning board application process, because they had to review and comment to the planning board.
No, it did not.
Please, we're not having any colloquy between the audience and the people at the table. Thank you.
That's the protocol that went on, okay? So I maintain that it went to the, it had a zoning code, not a zoning board review, but a code enforcement officer review, and they made comments to the planning board. And so the planning board relied upon that, and I also say it fits under either 3.11 F4 anyways, okay? It's about a business use in a commercial lot. That's the only issue. All the other issues that we're discussing peripheral, they've been discussed ad nauseum. does not address it. This addresses it. It's a commercial use in a commercial lot, and code enforcement office reviewed it when they reviewed the overall plan, and that was communicated to the planning board. Okay, and that's it. It's a laundromat, it's allowed, the planning board made a correct decision. The decision being is, that was okay. That's it.
Thank you.
Very simple.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Benner, you want to come back
I
up?
would like Kathy to speak in regards to this because she has knowledge. Okay, please have her speak.
Hi, my name is Kathy Hoot, and I live on 112 Mountain Road. And I'm back. For the record, while we were at the planning board hearing, I brought in a stamped copy of the application that was stamped zoning on it. I brought that to the attention that it was brought to the zoning board because it was stamped. You will find in the minutes that the planner, Joanne Devanza, said that it was not stamped in at the zoning board, that it was a mistake of Patty, that she picked up the wrong stamp and she stamped it zoning when it should have been planning. And you can find those in your minutes, and I want to clarify it, that as far as we were concerned, the zoning code enforcer and the zoning board, the zoning code enforcer never saw the plan. It was never presented to her, and it was stated so by the planner, Joanne Devanza, at the meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Benner?
Okay.
Are we moving to the next subject?
And also the,
If I may respond to that?
Please come up, Mr. Sullivan.
First off, we don't have the minutes here. Okay, so that's hearsay. Secondly,
Oh, we probably do.
okay,
Yeah.
secondly, whether there's a stamp or not is not the issue. The issue is, as a matter of protocol, was it presented to the code enforcement officer? And as a matter of protocol, I maintain it was. That is the procedure.
Please, again, we're not debating. I see Joanne Devanza with her hand up and back. If you want to come forward, you've been cited in this, so I'm going to give you the opportunity to speak.
Hi, good evening. Joanne Duffy, Planning and, excuse me, Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director. Can you not hear me?
we can't hear you.
Joanne Duffy, I can't breathe. Planning and Economic Development Director. I just wanted to say one thing. I'm here to just listen, but since my name came up, this stamp that they're all referring to is the zoning board stamp. I'm sorry, the zoning department stamp. Patty just mistakenly took the wrong stamp and stamped it zoning instead of planning. We're all in one department, but we have two different stamps. The code enforcement officer was included in the review back in the beginning when this was going through the TRC process. So the stamp is irrelevant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So which matter will we be taking up next?
The grandfather,
Alteration of the building?
yeah. All right.
Okay,
Ms.
so we're
Benner,
moving on to the
To the
next.
to the grandfather.
Right, right. All right, so anyhow, I believe this is the section here. Planning board voted without proper authorization as the ZBA only has authority in grandfather cases as such to approve the alteration of an existing non-conforming ranch which is demolishing the garage, altering the driveway, adding a new driveway, and turning it into a laundromat, which is a totally different use. The ranch and lot has fallen under a non-conforming structure and non-conforming lot that has been under the grandfather clause as residential since it was built in 1952. The way the ranch sits on the property, the lot size, the lack of setbacks, not having enough room for parking, and due to its abuts residential 1 and also residential BO2 base district, the circumstances do not allow this property to function as a commercial property, and this is why it has been used as residential for approximately 7 years. Altering a structure, a lot, and use does not allow a grandfather property to keep its grandfather status and be exempt from our ordinances. The grandfather clause would be lost, and thus the property would need to adhere to all of our town ordinances. Also, per 14.5, okay, grandfather clause, an alteration or expansion of such a non-conforming use, structure, or lot shall nevertheless be subject to all the provisions of this ordinances and subsequent amendments hereto. So in other words, okay, you're not grandfathered anymore, okay, and you're going to have to adhere to all the ordinances, which this property does not. And you're altering the property because you're demolishing the garage. So, the grandfather clause goes away. All right, and we're going back to, per 14.7.3.2, the proposed use of the non-conforming lot to front, side, and rear yard requirements and to the maximum building coverage requirements of section 4.3 table of dimension regulations do not, it's not for commercial use, okay? Then I have the pictures, okay, of 2 Hague Street, the lot dimensions, the measurements attached. 50 feet is needed for setbacks when property abuts residential, and it now has approximately only 30 feet without the driveway being relocated, and if you relocate the driveway, you're only going to have 2.5 feet setbacks, which doesn't make sense. It's going to be right on top of your neighbor's driveway, so it doesn't meet the setbacks. And then it's going to be only 6.4 feet from the proposed new entrance space, okay, for the right-hand turn on Mass Road. I'll show you pictures, or you should have pictures. And then it doesn't meet the ordinances, okay, for from the house, okay, on the Mass Road side, and neither does it meet the setbacks for Hague Street, okay. And I'll show you the pictures that I took and the measurements, okay. So you can't say it's grandfathered anymore, okay, because it's not. So you're going to have to meet all the regulations, and it doesn't meet all the regulations for the setbacks. Okay, so in your package, you should have had like 49 pages plus attached, okay? And we have pictures of the house, okay, on Hague Street, okay, and I measured, okay, from the driveway to the next door neighbor, which is about 30 feet, okay, where they wanted to move it. So they don't have that setback for 50 feet, all right? So, again, okay, moving the driveway, okay, you're going to be closer now to your neighbor. You're only going to have like a 2.5 setback, okay, when you're supposed to actually have 200 feet. So that has it's wrong setbacks, and it's going to be too close to the driveway. Okay?
I think, Ms. Benner, you're getting into questions of
Okay, well, I'm into setbacks.
what was approved under the conditional use permits, which again is not going to be the purview of this board to review.
But I'm talking about setbacks, and there's no conditional use for setbacks mentioned at all.
Oh, you're
okay?
talking about driveways, moving driveways.
Well, that's part of the setback too, though, right? Part of the setback?
May I ask a question?
Denise?
Are you quoting setbacks to a residential lot?
I'm quoting setbacks if you're a commercial lot abutting residential property, which this is, okay?
Residential property meaning somebody lives there or zoned residentially?
Zone, okay, because we are zoned, if you look at your maps, okay, that we've included, okay, and it's already been said too, the property on Joffrey Street is residential, okay, and it's used as residential. The property on Hague Street is residential business, the abutters, okay? So it doesn't abut any commercial property. It doesn't, abut.
RSVO 2 is not a residential lot. I'm just making sure we're all on the same
Okay, well, it's
page.
residential business, okay? Okay, and
Exactly, but
the setbacks, okay, the setbacks we're talking about is for residential. And it would also include residential business also, the setbacks that you have to meet. It says over here, commercial property, 50 feet where abutting residential zoning. Okay, so you're commercial, you're abutting residential, you have to be 50 feet. And they don't have the 50 feet.
It's RSVO 2.
Okay, so all the pictures I'm showing you too. Where the entrance is gonna be, okay, the setback to the driveway right now is only 6 feet 4 inches. Okay, so it doesn't match that at all, okay? And I'm showing you my measurement. The setbacks, okay, right now there's only like 6 feet 4 inches, okay, from the door to the existing driveway. So it doesn't meet that, okay? The house, okay, on the Mass Road side, it's supposed to be 50 feet, okay? It's only 21 feet 9 inches, okay? I measured that in your pictures. Okay, the property, okay, I already showed you the measurement from Hague Street to Mass Road. Okay, the setback from Hague Street, okay, to the road, so the front of the house right now, okay, to Hague Street, it's supposed to be 50 feet, and it only has 17 feet 9 inches. 17 feet 9 inches, that's missing a lot to 50 feet. And this shows you my measurement, okay? Okay, the first time that the driveways were mentioned, it was shot down. If you look at the notes on July 22nd, 2001, Karen Hughes made a motion to deny the conditional use permit to have the driveway located less than 100 feet. It's supposed to be 200 feet. They made an error, okay, from other driveways on the adjacent lot. Karen Peace seconded the motion. Karen Hughes made a motion. And Kimberly Peace, seconded the motion. And at the first time, July 22nd, okay, they voted that down, okay, the original vote. They voted it down. The conditional use for a new driveway was originally denied and does not fall under the conditional use exception.
Once again, we're trying to litigate
Okay,
the
all right. Well, I'm
conditional
just-
use
okay.
aspect, and that is not
Okay, all
what we're
right.
dealing with here.
Okay, anyhow, but the setbacks, it doesn't meet the setbacks, and they're missing a lot of feet, okay?
All right, Denise, you had a question, or you wish to
Well,
address?
I'm looking at our map, I have it right up here, and it is commercial. The lot we're speaking of is commercial.
The lot we're speaking
The
about.
lot
Yes,
that we speak of is commercial.
correct.
The lot that directly abuts it on Hague Street is residential business, RSVO 2. That is classified differently in our setbacks. Just trying to make it clear. All the residents, and I'm going to call them residents because people living there across the street are all zoned commercial. We don't make the zoning, the town votes in the zoning, and this is our commercial property in front of it. So when you're discussing setbacks, I would appreciate you explaining what the setbacks are, commercial to commercial, because that's what this is, or
Okay.
commercial to RSVO 2.
Okay, well, I had given you information, and it says if your commercial property, it also abuts residential. 8 Joffrey Street is commercial, 8 Joffrey Street is residential too. Okay, that's right next to the car wash, and it abuts also the property on 2 Hague Street. Okay, so that is residential right there. 8 Hague Street.
Glenn, can I ask a question?
I mean, Joffrey Street, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused, okay?
That's okay.
We have a question from Jason, if you would go ahead, Jason.
So, and I want to make sure that we're clear because I think I'm stressing what Denise just said. There is a difference between a setback required for commercial, there's a different setback required for R2, and a different setback required for RSBO2. Those are all different things. RSBO2 is not residential. RSBO is residential business. So they are different requirements.
All right, on the map that I included with your records here, table 4.3, okay, it has commercial, okay, and it says, okay, the front setbacks, okay, now it says, okay, minimum setback requirement, 50 feet when abutting residential zoning district, okay, and it doesn't say anything that commercial abutting RSB, it doesn't have anything on that chart. It only lists where it abuts a residential zoning district. And our base district is on Joffrey Street, residential, okay? If you look at it, I have a picture of the map.
I have the
don't
map
need to
right
see it.
here in front of me.
I have it
Okay.
too.
So, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I'm looking at it and I
All right.
understand what the property is. I
Just let me give you, by the way, Ms. Benner, a time warning. We spoke at the beginning of the
Okay, right.
session about wanting to conclude presentations by 8:45. If there are other people who want the opportunity to speak, we need to give it them. So just be conscious of the time because we're already at nearly 8:30.
Okay. It says, though, it's supposed to be 50 feet when abutting residential zoning district. And one property is residential, okay? The blue house is residential. The other one is residential business office 2, okay? And that's the property there. It's touching, it's abutting, okay? And it doesn't meet the requirements right there, okay? It's not even close to the requirements. It's far off of the requirements. So I'd like to bring that to your attention.
All right, is there anything, again, if we want to cover all three topics that we need to cover within the time limit?
Okay, all right.
If there's anything you'd like to add, and then I'd like to find out if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on it. Okay, Attorney Sullivan, let me see if there's any members of the public, and then you'll be called after them. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on the setback issue?
Thank you.
All right, hearing none, Attorney Sullivan, you and your client, please.
Sure. As you all have the zoning map, you'll see that Hague Street is what we're discussing. We're not discussing the car wash. Hague Street is in the commercial zone, as are its across the Hague Street butters who also butt Mass Road. And there's only one other butt, and that's an RSOB. The table she references calls for a commercial there of only, I think it's 25 feet for a rear lot, 10 for a side. No matter how you slice it, we have more than 30 feet. So we meet any setback requirement in that. The non-conformity she keeps talking about, the lot is a commercial zone. We're not asking to expand the non-conformity. We've asked to do a commercial use. So there is no expansion of any non-conformity. So in terms of whether it's the planning board had a proper treatment of that, it does. The lot is non-conforming, but we're not expanding the non-conforming use. It's a commercial zone, we meet the setback. Taking down the garage is not expanding a non-conforming use. It's just accommodating the proposed commercial use. It's not an expansion. So again, 14.5 is not applicable for any restriction. That's all I have to say. and all the other setbacks and stuff, the plan is an accurate representation of what will be and what is. Not any, the plan is accurate in terms of
Thank you.
things that.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm going to call on some in the audience, but I'd like, if you have new information,
Yeah.
please, if we're just gonna rehash.
No.
All right, Kathy Hooton, please.
Yes, before we go any
Please.
further with the setbacks, I'd like the developer to please tell the board what is the front, what is the side, and what is the rear in this building. Because until we know what the front of the building is, you cannot tell what the setbacks will be.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes. I don't have a specific reference in the zoning ordinance, but because we have a corner lot, we have actually two frontages, one on each of the streets, and we also would have the definition, and I apologize if I don't have it here, but we either would have two side setbacks or two rear setbacks, which would be opposite. And if I remember correctly, well, I think it's a side setback given the fact it's a corner lot, but I don't have the specific answer. The setbacks that do show on the plan, however, are based on the zoning ordinance. And we do meet, the building, existing building that's there, does meet those setbacks. Taking off the garage actually makes it further from the back. So we're not encroaching on the setbacks for commercial, which is 10 feet in the front and 10 feet in the side and 25 in the rear. So we're not encroaching on that.
All right.
One more.
Mr. Benner, okay.
I'm gonna
My pictures
shed-
show
no,
differently.
no. I'm going to, this is something new, because the attorney just brought up saying the only property we're talking about is the one on Hague Street, right? The corner of Hague and Mass Road. Unfortunately, their plan is dragging in the car wash property just by the way they presented it, using shared parking, shared entrance, shared driveway, shared everything. So we're not talking just about that little strip where the house is on Hague Street. They are the ones who are dragging it in. If we were just talking about that, that'd be something entirely different. But one of the properties that my wife brought up is on Joffrey Street, which abuts the property, which is a residential property, that's 8 Joffrey. They are the ones who dragged the car wash into it, which is why they would be I brought up originally that it was in violation of the special exception given to the car wash. We're not talking, as much as he wants you to believe, that little strip of land that house is sitting on. They are incorporating it into the car wash, which violates your zoning ordinance, and so it is part of the big picture. They can't have it both ways. They're either gonna do something with the with the house to make it a laundromat and make it a standalone business with ample parking, ample this, ample that, whatever you guys, zone says it has to be, or they're incorporating it into the car wash, where they're sharing parking, sharing driveway entrances, sharing this, sharing that. You can't have it both ways. So, that's what I wanted to bring up. The attorney said, oh, that one strip of property, we're not doing it. No, it couldn't stand alone if your life depended on it as a business. It's too small for a business property as it stands by itself, if you look at it as two separate properties. And that's what the planning board looked at it as a combined package with two quote-unquote separate owners, okay? that are sharing whatever they're gonna share. And that's where all that parking issue came up, which I'm not talking about. But you can't look at them as one and another. They're the ones who brought it in as one, as a shared thing. So if you're going to incorporate something from one property to the other, then you have to look at the abutters on both properties, because they're all in one. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's either you're gonna play by the rules or you're not. And you just can't divide it out. And that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Attorney Sullivan.
The car wash is long established as a special use. It is not, the configuration on that lot is not changing. However, there is some shared parking, which is allowed under 7.3.5, where it says, parking lots on adjacent parcels may be interconnected. There's also shared driveway, which is universally accepted under a variety of situations, residential and commercial. So I respectfully disagree. That car wash is not a factor under your consideration. Only Hague Street is.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So there is no alterations being done on the car wash site?
The only thing that's going to happen on a car wash site is there are some parking spaces that will be shared, but it's not impacting the necessary number of parking spaces on the car wash site.
And are those new parking spots near the residential property that it abuts?
There's some in the front, and it doesn't, no, they're not. They're on the opposite
Okay.
side. They're on the laundromat side.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
All right,
Wait, I have a question.
Jason.
Attorney Sullivan, you said that was 735?
7.3.5. Page 67, entitled Setbacks and Restrictions.
Okay,
Oh, all right, there it is, okay.
so we move
Thank
on
you.
to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
When did I get this done?
Yeah.
So the next one is handicap parking.
But, yeah,
Handicap parking.
handicap parking. All right, the next point is better would be the handicap parking space.
Okay, all right. Well, my pictures clearly show that the property does not meet the setbacks, because I actually measured and I actually shown you pictures. The attorney didn't even know the setbacks. He got it over here and he didn't even know what the setbacks were, okay? So again, I think the pictures tell it all, right? And he did speak about the parking, okay? This is the parking spaces, okay, that they want to share. They want to park in the vacuum cleaner spot, okay? Again, well, he brought up the vacuum spot, I mean, he brought up the parking spaces. He's saying there's enough. There's not, because they want the cars to park where the vacuum cleaners are. So,
Can we,
we're gonna park where the
handicap
vacuum
parking
cleaner.
is what we're talking about.
This is the handicap.
Okay, well anyhow, so this is it there, okay? The regular parking spots are gonna be shared with the vacuum cleaner spots. That doesn't make sense.
But again, we're
Okay.
talking
The,
just that
the
handicap parking
The
spot.
handicap parking is right on the property line, okay? And they didn't get any special exception or any permits to disconfigure what's there for a driveway right now. They're just going ahead and wiping out part of the driveway that's existing, and they're putting a parking space right in where that driveway exists. Okay, they didn't get any permits for that. And that parking space, okay, is right on the property line, which is against the ordinances, okay? So they didn't get permission to alter this, they're altering it, and they're putting a handicap space on the property line, which is against our ordinances. And it's supposed to be, okay, I guess I wrote it in here. Okay, so attached, a handicap accessible parking space marked 3, okay, is on the property line in violation of the 7.3.5 setbacks and restrictions. In the RSBO 1 and RSBO 2, okay, in all non-residential districts, no off-street parking for any use shall occur within 10 feet of the front property line, or within 10 feet of the front lot line. No off-street parking for any use in any district shall be located within 5 feet of any side streets or rear lots. Proposed laundromat entrance is facing car wash, so I believe for parking purposes, it would need to be 10 feet from the car wash's property. However, this parking space is on the property line, has 0 setbacks from the line, and please note that the car wash's parking lot is not interconnected. That is a driveway right there. No conditional use permit or any other requests, special exceptions, or anything was requested for this parking space to be on the property line. And I guess there's no rebuttal to this, I guess, okay?
Well,
So, okay,
The chair didn't ask.
okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
all right, if you're finished, Ms. Benner, is there anyone before Attorney Sullivan responds? All right, I see a gentleman in the back row.
Yes,
Please come forward
Yeah, I'm
and
just gonna
state
do it
your
really quick.
name
I don't
for the
want to take up
record.
time. My whole point was, my name is Kyle Burton. I live at 5 Hague Street, and we have about 4 minutes until 8:45. So.
We're trying to wrap it up.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much for the time reminder, sir.
So anyhow, I'm just gonna sum this up, that,
All right.
okay? I'm gonna just sum all this up, saying that it just does not meet any ordinances,
Could I respond to
okay?
one point?
And I'm asking to
Summary?
please deny this project tonight. Don't let it continue again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Benner. Attorney Sullivan, Mr. Mitchell?
Again, I refer to section 7.3.5. She neglected to say the last clause. I'll read that full sentence. No off-street parking for any use in any district shall be located within 5 feet of any side or rear lot lines, except that parking lots on adjacent parcels may be interconnected. We did get a CU permit for shared driving and parking. For that reason, I don't think it's properly put before this board. I think that should go to the Superior Court. But nonetheless, we have a conditional use permit that allows shared parking in shared driveway. And yes, the end of that handicap is on the line, but it's part of the conditional use permit we maintain.
No, that was not mentioned in your permit.
Please,
It wasn't.
please, we're not
Okay.
debating
Okay. All
with
right.
each other here. Thank you, Ms. Benner.
All right.
Mr. Mitchell?
And just to re-emphasize, where it says that it's supposed to be 5 feet from any side and rear lot line, the rest of the clause, which is not in the applicant's letter, says, except that parking lots on adjacent parcels may be interconnected. And so the 5 feet doesn't apply to that because we are interconnected.
But there's no other parking spaces for their
Ms. Benner,
Okay, I'm
please.
Okay, all right.
I think it's
I
time.
disagree with that.
I'm gonna give Kathy Hooton one more. Is this something new?
I just want to wrap this up, and I just want to say one thing. I'm back on the idea that I think you should come back to the zoning board. If you go through your special exception, the one thing that stands out is 15.3213. The use will not create a nuisance or hazard to vehicles or pedestrians in a manner that cannot be ameliorated. That issue has never been discussed, could not be discussed at the planning board. 15.3214, the proposed location is of sufficient size to allow adequate and appropriate facilities for the proper operations. That was never discussed. You go through your special exception 5 criteria. You will find that that which we've discussed tonight and that which needs to be discussed by the zoning board, needs to be presented to the zoning board. And I again wish you would look at it as a characteristic on the table of uses as a possible car wash and treat it as a special exception so all of this criteria can be researched and discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say one one thing on that. The problem that we have here is this is not the forum in which we can adjudicate these things. These are things that, yeah, this should have been done in the past. We're not being asked to adjudicate those. We're being asked to decide on an appeal from another board's decision. Things that should have been done beforehand, unfortunately, we can't remedy at this point. Attorney Sullivan.
You just said it, it's not a special exception, and I repeat what you had to refer to what you just said, can't be addressed.
All right. Jason?
So, and I guess maybe I missed this, but was there, I didn't realize that there was a conditional use permit for the parking. If there was, is there one from the planning board for that? Because if there is, then I feel that would go to Superior Court.
There's a conditional use permit under section 7.5 for alternative parking arrangements to permit shared parking access and the number of parking spaces provided.
I mean, number of parking spaces.
So it's shared parking access and number of spaces provided.
Then I really wonder, based on that, very good question, Jason, because I really wonder, based on that wasn't mentioned in
Well,
That was a
context
gray
in the
area to listen
staff
to. You're right, though.
report, whether we should be considering that at all, given the fact that there is a conditional use permit involved, and that should be, once again, the statute is very specific about anything relating to conditional use going to the Superior Court.
The only thing about that is that, I think, I've got to see
Are
if
we
I can.
closing the public before?
Yes, let's,
Sorry, Jason.
No.
all right, I'm going to, at this point, we have covered the points which we are able to adjudicate tonight. At this point, I am going to close the public hearing, and the board is going to deliberate. Okay, Jason, you,
Yeah, I want to look up one thing before I say this. I think it's. So I guess the question that I'm trying to answer is that this is specifically calling out handicap parking spaces. So if it didn't specifically call out, like it said the number and shared spaces, but I don't think that there's a handicap parking space there now because it's the back of a house. So there's no handicap parking space that exists right now. So it can't be a shared space because it doesn't exist. So I think that we can talk about the handicap space specifically because I think our zoning ordinances call out handicap parking separately. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
thank you.
And if anybody knows this book better than I can help me with that. I never remember what it is. But I know I've seen it. There's a table somewhere that has a list of things, I just can't find it. No, that's not-
The reason I agreed to hear it is because it tied in with the shared parking. So I don't know if we can vote on it, deliberate and vote on it based on that, or you think it's safer not to?
My feeling is it would be, because it's wrapped up in a conditional use permit, it would be safer not to vote on that specific issue.
It says here that, well, let's handle the first one. Can get back to that.
All right, if you wanna,
So the classification? Jason, you have any comments?
On the classification
Mhm.
there?
So I know you're looking at the code.
Oh. So, in terms of classification, in the absence of having a definition of a laundromat, I think it's a general business or a service. So I think it classifies properly under those.
I would concur. My own research, laundromats are classified, there's actually an industrial classification number for them under personal and laundry services. It's a service business. I think obviously in a table of uses in an ordinance like ours, you couldn't possibly have an exhaustive listing of every possible business that could go in there. I think it fits the personal services classification, and I feel it was properly classified as well.
And per 3.3, the zoning code enforcer can make that call. I do not think she erred on that.
And I believe that that section of the ordinance also allows the zoning code enforcement officer to refer to the industrial classification codes in making that determination. So I feel that was correctly made.
Right.
I'll make a motion on
All
that.
right, Denise, go.
I'd like to make a motion on the classification as, where is that classification? Sorry, should have this out.
Page 20.
Services, personal and business is correct, and per section 3.3, the zoning code enforcement did not err in making that decision of putting it in there.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Obviously, no abstentions or no votes. All right, on to the next point regarding the planning board's authority regarding the grandfather clause for the existing property.
So, my note on this one is that altering and deleting are different. So the fact that they're deleting a garage is not altering the property because it's eliminating a use. It's not really making a change to it.
Well, also, my thought is tearing down the garage increases the conformity to the zoning of the property and does not increase non-conformity. I believe one of the notes in our staff report said by tearing down the garage, you increase the amount of setback to the property in the rear on Hague Street. I think too, the thing with grandfathering, it's been residential, non-conforming residential and grandfathered for most of its life. By changing the property will remove the grandfathering, but it brings it into more conformity with the zone that it exists in.
Yeah, and I mean, we typically run into residentials that are trying to be reconfigured as commercial, not the other way around. So in this particular case, the grandfather was actually, if we eliminate it, it returns it to a commercial zone.
And I believe, as Denise mentioned in looking at the zoning map, there are numerous other properties in that area which are used in residential use but are in the commercial zone and are obviously in the same status where they are grandfathered as non-conforming.
And also part of that discussion was setbacks. And I think we cleared up the confusion with it wasn't abutting residential except for the car wash area.
Right.
And there is no new work going in there, so it does not pertain to the work that's being done in this property as well.
And to also point out that we can't, as a zoning board, can't change the zoning. So it is what it is
Only
unless
the voters can.
voters make that change. So,
All right, I'm ready for a motion if somebody would like to offer one.
I don't know if I could word it right. Hang on. Well, if you get it before I do, go ahead. All right. I think I
I'm
got
letting you
it.
have it. Go
All right.
ahead.
I'll make the motion that the planning board do not vote without proper authorization as the property is not being altered in such a way to change its zoning status from, no, that
I
won't
think
work.
conformity to the lot.
Yeah,
It's not changing.
yeah, so. Write this down, Gail, it takes me forever to figure this out. Wordsmithing I'm not good at.
That's-
Okay. Let me try this one. Motion would be the planning board did vote with proper authorization as the property is not being altered in such a way to change its zoning from commercial.
I second.
Does that sound good? Okay.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And as far as as we discussed, as far as the handicap accessible parking space, I think that matter is going to be best left to go to the Superior Court because of its involvement with a conditional use permit, which we are not permitted to review.
I have a kind of a logistic question, because this is a little different. Typically, we vote in favor or not in favor of the zoning applicant. So did we make the proper voting? Did we make the
I think it
proper
would probably,
motions?
the motions would be clear as whether to deny the appeal or.
That's what I was just thinking,
to
that
add
it
that
needs
in.
to. So we need to
Okay, so we need
reverse
to
that,
reverse
don't you
that.
think?
I think
I
that
just
would, that would be
thought of that.
clearer, that would be clearer
I
for the
apologize,
record.
I just kind of
No,
went
that's a
through my
good
head.
point. Well, the other thing too, and this popped into my head before and I forgot about it. This is one appeal. So it's either all or nothing, right?
No,
No,
I
we can
think-
go
No.
separate.
Oh, we can do
do separate,
pieces.
because we
Okay.
could have found something.
And
Okay.
because we separated out the issues
Okay.
beforehand.
Okay, let's start this over.
Okay.
All right, so
You know,
let's
I
go.
motion to deny the appeal, questioning the classification as a business, services, personal and business, class D on this commercial lot. I denied it, that's it, simple.
I'm,
It's amended motion, right? So Len's gonna approve his second to the amendment?
I'll second that as an amendment. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And I'll amend my motion so that we are denying the appeal, questioning the planning board's proper authorization. Wait. Motion to deny the appeal, questioning the planning board's proper authorization.
To approve the alteration of an existing non-conforming, etc.
Yes. I'll,
Yeah.
I am amenable to that.
I'll second that.
All right. With that, any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
That properly clarifies that. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it.
All
Then
right.
I'll make a motion to, the point 4, which we decided to hear, to deny the hearing of this based on the fact that it should be appealed to Superior Court, not the zoning board.
I'll second that.
Second, well,
Sorry. And while we're at it, why don't we just deny the others on the record, what about? I think that would be a good idea. What do you think?
yes. All right, so let's first vote on Jason's motion. Was there-
Sorry.
Was there a second on that?
I second
I
it.
think you both did.
Yeah.
That's
That's
right. Regarding the handicap parking space, there's no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, do we want to, should we do these individually?
I don't think we
on the-
need to. But it's up to you. You
I
we
don't
need
think
to?
you need to. You could lump them all in together under
Lump them in.
All
conditional
right,
use.
then I will make a motion that the various items raised in the appeal regarding the planning board's approval of conditional use permits be denied a hearing by us because they involve conditional use permits which must go to the Superior Court.
I second that.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Vaughn has an opportunity to speak, because he was supposed to be on the phone.
He did not call in.
Oh, it's sitting there.
Thank you very much. I would like to call at this point a 5-minute
Sure.
recess so everybody can get a quick stress, and then we'll take up the rest of the docket.
No problem.
And Gail.
Gail,
Thank you.
Are you amenable to that now that you're the chair again?
Thank you. You as
Taking a
well.
5-minute break?
Oh, yes, I was hoping because I need to.
I will.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, I need candy.
I need it.
Gotta give it, I thought we needed to tag to you because it's gonna be a tough. They
Oh,
do?
yeah, yeah,
Well,
they have little
okay,
cordials.
if you're gonna continue to do that,
Christmas is coming.
we have a request.
Okay, the
Okay.
recording is getting ready. We're going to resume our meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We have just 2 applications remaining. The application for Brian Nawa has been continued at his request earlier this evening, and also the other one, the public hearing on the remand by the Housing Appeals Board, has been requested, has been continued as well. So we are on to the application for Luke Roy, applicant and Turning Point LLC owner, seeking a variance to build a single-family home in the commercial industrial flex zone. This concerns section 3.11, table of principal uses of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The property is located at Kennedy Hill Road, a class 6 roadway, map 5, lot 44, zone commercial industrial flex. So do we have anybody here for that application?
Yes,
And you had an attorney?
not for this.
Huh? Not for this?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm Luke Roy, the applicant.
Oh, it was a different one that had the attorney. I'm sorry.
Hold on for 1 second. I'll make a motion for no regional impact.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, and do you want to tell us about your application?
It's just a wooded lot that I'm trying to build a house on if I do go through with the purchase. I don't see any impact on any of the abutters. That is all.
Short and sweet and to the point. Okay, does the board have questions?
Bear with me, I'm sorry.
I was just trying to figure out where you were going to put the house. I'm gonna have to repair the bottom of my car, I think, but.
On the top part of the property line, maybe 300 feet off of that edge, 400 feet off the road.
Okay. Like past the gate?
The steel gate,
Yeah.
it would be about 200 feet off of that line,
Okay.
but 400 feet off of Kennedy Hill Road, up by that gate, yes.
Be nice of you.
So I think the question here is the zone that it's in. Am I correct?
Say that again?
The question that we have is the zone that it is in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any questions otherwise.
Being in the commercial industrial flex, it's not specifically a residential. Usually, commercial industrial flex allows a combination. It could be a business and residential, kind of like a, I don't know.
Combo.
Yeah, combo. And this is just residential homes. Now, your application states that there are other properties that have homes on them right now. Is that right?
There is existing buildings.
Existing buildings?
There's a burnt down house on the lot specifically I'm interested in.
Okay.
And further up the road, lots that I believe are zoned agricultural have buildings that are in demise.
Okay. So they're zoned agricultural, they're not zoned commercial industrial flex?
The lots above me, yes,
Okay.
to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. Do you want to join, are you with the applicant?
I am, if I could.
Not at all.
Hi, Adam Jacobs, representing Turning Point LLC. So we're the owners of the property currently, under contract with Mr. Roy to sell the parcel. If I could speak to the variance request, that'd be appreciated.
If he doesn't mind, I don't mind.
All right. So the Maybe just a quick blurb about the commercial industrial flex zone. This parcel is one of the few remaining in the flex zone that sits back from Mast Road. Initially, after the 2009 master plan corridor study was done, there was some hope that a back corridor, access corridor, could be made parallel to Mast Road, which would come in Henry Bridge Road at the existing three-way signal. It would be a four-way leg, and then it would be a parallel commercial corridor along the back side of those parcels that abut Mast Road. Eventually, terminating where Tatro Drive is now. So the thought was make this nice long parallel access corridor, which
Very familiar with this.
which looks very good on paper, but when you actually get out of the car, as you've probably found, and start trying to walk the land and see kind of the topography of things, what looks good on a two-dimensional map doesn't look so great in actuality. So due to the different owners along what would be that access corridor now, it would really require some kind of monumental effort to get everyone together to agree that we're going to turn over some land for a public road, or an eminent domain type process, or maybe some other kind of a TIF district, which had failed at the town meeting. So really there hasn't been, it's been fits and starts, and people have come with different ideas, but access is always the biggest problem. So as Mr. Roy mentioned, the parcel itself, it only has frontage on the Class 6 portion of Kennedy Hill down near Mast Road. So Kennedy Hill, that you're probably familiar with, the Class 5 portion is up at the top off Shirley Hill and Addison. And there's a gate with some power lines up at the top there. This parcel is down near Mast Road. Directly, the access of the Class 6 is directly across from East Point Tool Rentals, just past the Irving station at Henry Bridge. So if you head back into town from Henry Bridge Road, a couple houses, and then on your left you might see kind of an open area right near Mast Road, and that's an actual Class 6 road that's been pretty well allowed to overgrow by the abutters as they try to discourage public use of the public road, but it's Class 6. So anyhow, so it's right down near Mast Road. So we sit one parcel back, so we don't abut Mast Road. So the only frontage is on the Class 6. So Mr. Roy, if a variance was approved for a single family or for residential use in the flex zone, they'd have to then go to the select board for a building permit and the permission to use a Class 6. But the question tonight for the variance. If the board doesn't mind, I could speak to each of the 5 variance criteria, or at least
You read my mind.
throw a bone to them anyway. No particular order. A variance to be approved should be not contrary to the public interest, I think. As the ordinance itself allows residential housing in the flex zone, albeit as part of a mixed-use development, I think it would be pretty hard to say that a single-family residence would be adverse to the public interest. The spirit of the ordinance, those two get tied together, relatively common. The spirit of the ordinance is observed both in the general provisions of the zoning ordinance as well as the commercial industrial flex zone section and the agricultural zone, which is the abutting. This is the last parcel before the agricultural zone. So the surrounding use currently primarily is residential, single-family residential. The house is along Mast Road. Just recently, the landscaping business was approved on Mast. That's not a direct abutter, but it's across and diagonal to the parcel on the Mast Road side of Kennedy Hill. But the spirit of the ordinance, just from the general provisions of the zoning ordinance, among other things, control and regulate nuisance-producing uses of land. Single-family residential, I hope, would not do that. Avoid undue concentration of population, prevent the overcrowding of land, and control and regulate congestion in the streets. Again, single use versus maybe what the flex zone would allow in a mixed-use development would be a substantial traffic load if it were improved to its full capacity. It's a 25 plus 26 acre parcel. The flex zone would allow up to 15 dwelling units an acre for a mixed-use development. The ordinance is a bit silent when it comes to what an actual mixed-use development looks like. There's some talk of either a shopkeeper type thing where it's a live above, business below, or a flipped version if the board sees fit. But not a lot of talk if you have if somebody were to recreate a town square on a huge parcel or something like that. So I guess we haven't, as a town, figured out yet what that kind of looks like. But Certainly, the parcel itself couldn't be fully developed. All the acreage is not reasonable, but if it were, the max loading of that lot would be pretty substantial amount of traffic congestion, and there'd be some intersection challenges, of course. Ordinance also seeks to facilitate adequate provision of transportation to the town, conserve natural beauty and open space, and conserve property values by preventing harmful encroachment of incompatible uses. So I think where Mr. Roy had mentioned the abutting residential use, this really blends into the current use of that piece of town, regardless of the actual zoning of the parcel. Let's see. Substantial justice being done is point number 3. A couple bullets to go with that. So the proposed use is consistent with the existing present use of the surrounding area, so that's one test for substantial justice. Another would be that the public benefit doesn't outweigh the loss to the property owner if the variance were to be denied, or another way to look at that is does the private benefit outweigh any harm that could be given to the general public if you do approve the variance? In this case, I think it's hard to argue that approving a single family residential home creates a substantial piece of harm to the general public, whereas denying the claim, of course, would harm the applicant. Item number 4, very closely tied to that as well. The values of the surrounding properties are not diminished. I think there might be some abutters here to speak to this, but I think they can probably think of a handful of other uses in the zoning ordinance that are allowable that probably would, in their eyes, diminish their property values. And also maybe the inverse argument could be made that if this is developed as single-family residential, the value of remaining commercial property, which is on Mass Road and does have that frontage now, might be even more valuable because there's less acreage of commercial development. I think as the board's looked at a few of these variants for use along Mass Road in the flex zone corridor, that question's come up before about the remaining amount of commercial land in town, and seems to be the big push is for multifamily residential variances. But this parcel doesn't really lend itself as well as some of these others that are right on Mass Road. And then finally, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. You have to kind of go into the definition of unnecessary hardship here, but owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, no fair and substantial relationship exists between general public purposes of the ordinance and the specific application for this piece of property, and is the proposed use a reasonable one. So to this unnecessary hardship discussion, the special conditions, there's a few. As I mentioned earlier, with the access that had been hoped by the corridor study back in '09, DOT controls this portion of Route 114. So any development along Mass Road, if it's going to change the use or increase the intensity of, is required to get a driveway permit from the Department of Transportation. Where Kennedy Hill, the Class 6, terminates, it's close enough to the Henry Bridge Road intersection that DOT has not been very favorable when it has come to them in the past for other developments, either those parcels that are right on Mass Road or the couple that are back off Kennedy Hill. Because they're so close to a signalized intersection, there's some additional concerns they have about left turn movements across traffic that might be backed up and stacked at a signal. If there's additional turn lanes required, how does that work if you have lanes coming into a signal that's already overburdened? Right now the signal is a level of service D, so according to the state, it already doesn't function properly, so they're being very mindful right now about applications that are either increasing the intensity at that signal or trying to turn a bunch of traffic into a commercial development a couple hundred feet up the street. So I know a few restaurants that had kicked tires about some of the parcels that were for sale just up the street on 114 right near this Kennedy Hill access, and they just couldn't make the driveway permit work because they didn't have the right of way to add an additional turn lane dedicated or a slow down lane if you're coming from the village side. So that's one of the special conditions of this parcel. The other, I kind of mentioned the topography. If you get out and walk the Class 6 portion of Kennedy Hill, it starts off roughly flat there right at Mass Road. Once you cross a stream, it rather quickly takes an uptick in slope. The parcel itself then cuts back at an angle, and the side of the property, if you look at the topography on GIS or sorry, I probably should have brought some handouts, but the parcel itself slopes off significantly. Once you get away from the Kennedy Hill by even 100 feet, now you've got a significant grade change between this parcel and the next one, which abuts Mast Road. So to really encourage any kind of a road development there, it doesn't really lend itself well. The back side of that parcel that's flat down below has a stream in it, so you've got another challenge. There are 2 seasonal streams, at least, on the parcel itself. So any driveway or any commercial driveway or parking lot is going to have to avoid some of those. The backside, after a pretty significant ravine on the back upper part of the property, is largely taken by transmission right-of-way. Eversource has a fairly large right-of-way through the back corner of the property, and then there's a piece of the property that's on the far side then again of the transmission line. So really unusable from a commercial perspective, certainly from an industrial piece. So the topography of the site is another special condition. I mentioned the seasonal streams. The right-of-way itself is, as best we know, is a 2-rod right-of-way, and it's a Class 6. So there's going to have to be either some right-of-way acquisition to make a suitable large scale. So if somebody's looking at a 26-acre parcel in the commercial zone thinking this is great, we could have some economic development, you'd need to figure out a way to widen that right-of-way to be able to get the proper drainage and width to be able to sustain any large industrial, tractor trailer type stuff that might come into a factory, for example, or significant amounts of cars that are going to have to, come to a major commercial site. I mentioned it's one of the few left. I think there's 4 or 5 parcels that are in the flex zone that don't directly abut Mast Road or have an easement across the rail trail to get to Mast Road. So if you look at the zoning map, you'll see this one and 3 or 4 more in this area, and I think 1 or 2 up closer to the village sit back a whole parcel. So really they're either landlocked or there's significant challenges to get access to and from the main arterial. And then the only other thing I think as a special condition is that it's the last, as I mentioned, the last parcel before the agricultural zone. It's currently in current use. The parcels surrounding it, at least up the hill, are either undeveloped or very sparsely developed. So single-family residential, basically above Mast Road. There's no business to speak of on that side. On the far side of the Class 6 on Kennedy Hill, there is a residential neighborhood, Longbrook, which is relatively new, and then a farm. So also not a great access point if you're thinking of developing commercial use down by Mast Road, but having it access that way, you wouldn't want to send them through the farm or through the neighborhood. So that Mast Road access is really it. And then just finally to the proposed use being a reasonable one, because it's current use now, I think the intensity is low. It would stay low with a single-family residence as proposed. As Mr. Roy mentioned, there is evidence of a former foundation there, so there's potentially an abandoned residential use, but it's been gone so long it doesn't really satisfy the ordinance requirements to just rebuild. The residential use itself is allowed in the zoning ordinance as part of a mixed use, so it's kind of the opposite of what you normally see if somebody wants to have a more intensive use. In this case, they're just asking for a less intensive, but a use that's already permitted, albeit as part of a mixed use development. I think I touched on everything I wanted to hit there, so turn it over maybe to anybody else that wants to speak, but certainly I can slide over if you have any questions of me as well.
Does the board have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Jason?
I'm still torn up about the fact that I was on the other side of Kennedy Hill Road, looking at that Class 6 going, oh my gosh.
Before you leave,
I'll just
my question is, of that 25 or 26 acres, how much of it do you consider a guesstimate is usable or buildable?
So one of the concerns I would imagine the board would have on an approval of a variance like this would be, okay, we approve residential use. A year goes by, Mr. Roy comes in with his bank and they say, hey, we want to now put in 200 residential units. We've got the variance. We don't need to see the zoning board anymore. I think it's probably a tall order. to say that you'd get much more than maybe a minor subdivision there. I think you could probably get a couple house lots or maybe 2 duplex lots. You know, they both, a duplex would count as a single family. You might be able to get a single family split in a minor subdivision. I think it would be a huge challenge to get a major subdivision passed there. Any kind of site plan is going to be very difficult, just from a DOT access and then improvement of the right-of-way perspective, let alone the use of the land itself. I think from a land and topography point of view, those 2 stream crossings make it pretty difficult. And then once you get back beyond the second into the closer to the power lines, there's some usable land there, but it's going to be a challenge to get more than 1 or 2 driveways on the site. So.
Thank you. Chris?
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Denise.
I did not walk this. I know where it is.
Do it orange if you're going to walk it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
So it abuts Pro Landscape, that whole development. Is that correct?
It, Pro Landscape,
And then there's
on
some,
the far, I think they are 1 parcel removed.
okay. So the other, that whole, I'm going to call that a development, commercial development. How is this property, how's this land connected to that? Is it flat? Is it steep hill? Is it?
It's a large shelf.
Pretty steep.
Okay.
Lots of granite right there. That's pretty impassable.
When you walk the edge, I guess it would be the western property line of this parcel, walking up the hill and away from Kennedy Hill, you very quickly start to see the tops of the trees that are on the parcel below. So
Okay.
enough that it's significant.
Anything else? Board? Okay, then we will, if you guys want to step back, we'll open it to the public and see if are there any comments or anything from people in the audience?
Yes.
You are?
Tanya Tisdale.
What?
Tanya Tisdale. Tisdale.
Okay.
And we are the new owners of the property, I guess you could say, across the street from these guys. So I think lot 44. We do border the new landscape business. And so basically we're hoping to also put a house on the land after we get the right-of-way issue squared away. But again, our concern would obviously be, a bigger industrial building going there, and having that road be upgraded and potentially causing issues that way. So we're in favor of this. And that's pretty much it.
Is that your husband in the back?
Yes.
He's shaking his head.
Yes.
It's got your vote too.
And very patient daughters.
They are so patient.
Very, very good.
Is that it?
That's
Thank you.
No, yeah, we're just in favor of that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who has any comments? None? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing and the board can enter deliberations.
Okay. I'm very possessive of our commercial property in town of Goffstown.
Yeah.
Who, you?
Yeah, because it is. We don't have a lot. I know this property well. Not saying I'm against it, because I'm not. What scares me, though, is another residential, and they don't want to see industrial or commercial. It's the way it's zoned. So eventually, it could become that. We're giving up a lot of backland. I agree, the road that was going to connect it is never going to happen, because no one's going to pay for it to go across those power lines with all that ledge. So I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm saying that I'm cautious.
And for once, I would agree with Denise. Only to say that, I've seen this in some other parts of town. Used to live on Worthley Hill, which is very much the same situation. Class 5 road that terminates into an unmaintained Class 6, which goes all the way over the top of the hill. But to develop it for the amount of earth moving, blasting, ledge moving that you would need to do. It's something that I could never imagine being economically viable, and I think that's part of the thing that we have to consider in these developments. It has to use the CIFZ. While we may classify it that way, is it ever going to be something that people are going to find economically viable to develop versus something that will add to the town's tax base? And like it's, I do agree with Denise that we need to be cautious, but when you've got a parcel like this, it's essentially backland with a number of negative factors attached to it, that this perhaps might be the best use for it.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with you. When I first saw at quick glance and it was CIFZ and a single-family house, it's like, oh no. You know, because like you said, there goes our commercial properties, and you know, it's not something we'd like to see to let go, kind of. But it does make sense on this property because it is basically unbuildable, with the exceptions of maybe a couple of small house lots kind of thing. So,
And still gonna have to go through fire, I would think, in planning, so, you know.
It would also need, it's noted in your staff report,
needs to go to the select board.
need to go to the select board
Because
because
of
it
the-
has frontage on a class 6 road.
Okay. So all we're concerned about is putting a residential in a CFIZ with no commercial component or industrial component.
Right.
And that's why I asked the question if it could connect to the other, because then it could kind of be a rear
That's why-
commercial, but it can't, so.
That's why I asked
mean,
how much of
it's-
that property is considered
Right,
usable.
I mean, you can blast through ledge, I know.
It said that you
But
can build
it's-
anything anywhere, but you don't necessarily.
Yeah,
don't-
right,
you
so we
don't-
have to be reasonable in it, and
Right,
you can see I'm leaning toward it.
yeah.
But I had to just give you my lecture about that corridor.
Jason?
I felt the same way, except I was just going with the, you know, we could always put the requirement that it is only, you know, a single family house, and if it has to be subdivided, it has to be, we have to readdress it. Our approval can only be for that particular.
It would be. Yeah,
So-
if they were gonna be, I would think, Derek, am I wrong? If they wanted to put more residential in that area, they'd have to come back, because they're still not meeting the mixed use. We're not creating a residential lot.
You're creating a variance for this lot to allow a single-family residence. I would say that in the future, they would be able to subdivide it under the terms of the zoning ordinance in effect, so they would need to meet minimum lot size and that, and they'd be subject to the uses that are allowed at that time in the zoning ordinance. So if it was to break off additional pieces for other single-family uses, those new lots would have to, provided there's no changes.
Correct.
Come back for variance,
Okay.
or if it was some use that's permitted or permitted by a conditional use permit, they would follow that route.
Okay, good. So that protects us.
I mean, I would still say we can, because we can put requirements or special things onto it too. So if we say a single-family home, that protects.
I don't know that I would want to limit that. I mean, it is a large lot, and.
Right, but it's, yeah.
They'd have to come back to the zoning board that's in effect at that point. So if they wanted to put an apartment building, they could come back, and whoever's in the zoning board at that point. That's a whole different.
And I would say our ordinance does make distinction between single-family, two-family, multifamily. So even to go from a single-family to a duplex, that's a distinct use under the town zoning ordinance.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I motion that we grant a variance to build a single-family home in a commercial industrial flex zone as presented here this evening on a Class 6 road.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Denise, the second from Len, to grant the variance as requested. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstain? No, 4-0. You have your variance.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
Absolutely.
Good job, ladies. Yeah.
That way too. I just want to. But
They came prepared.
Your cream puff inside after all.
well, no, I take each case.
Individual.
Yes, I will do.
Okay, our next application, our last application, thank you for waiting very much.
Okay, we've had enough. No.
Matthew Allery?
Time.
How do we pronounce your last name?
Allery.
Allery, okay. Applicant owner seeking a variance to replace existing stairs with a 4-foot by 5-foot landing for a 2-family home in a new location, shifting approximately 8 feet 5 inches toward the front of the 2-family home on left unit, approximately 7 feet from the side property line, whereas 15 is required. This concerns section 4.3, table of dimensional regulations of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The property is located at 44 Fairview Street, map 16, lot 177, zoned residential 2. And before we begin, I'll entertain a motion for regional impact, please.
I move no regional impact.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstaining? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Allery, would you tell us what you want to do?
Good evening. So I would like to replace the existing staircase and move it closer to the street side. It will not affect any of the setback from the road. The only setback that it is encroaching on is 48 Fairview Street, the border with 44 and 48. The house was built in 1953, before the zoning ordinances were in place. As it stands, there's no way for my house to conform, as it is only 10 feet from the border. The staircase that I'm going to rebuild will not encroach any more than the existing staircase did. It is just merely just shifting down the wall. The purpose of this was to create a better living environment for renters in there. The existing kitchen was extremely small and just not well put. By changing where the door was, I was able to, I forget how many, I think I was able to add 4 feet of counter space. Fortunately, I was kind of misled on that I only needed a permit before I started I purchased the entire kitchen. Not on the city, that's on my former contractor. So at this point, everything is already purchased for the kitchen. The kitchen has to go in the way it goes in. I don't feel that changing the location of the staircase is impacting the public adversely. It's providing a safe exit, alternative exit to the apartment in case of fire. The residents of 48 Fairview Street won't be impacted any more than the old staircase was. They have young children, couldn't be here tonight. I have a letter from Sunshine Voisine of 48 Fairview Street stating that they do not have a problem with the staircase moving. I don't know. I got it after I submitted the paperwork.
Thank you, sir.
Can we keep that for the file, please?
Yes, you can. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long night.
It certainly has.
Everything that I had in the packet, unfortunately, I should have made a copy. This is my first time trying to get a variance, so I should have made a copy.
I'll give you my copy. Oh, you got it? Good, thanks.
So another point that I forgot, the exterior appearance is not changing. If anything, it's improving, because when I purchased the house, the staircase was in disrepair. It needed to get replaced anyways because it was unsafe, and I would not have rented it to a renter in the condition that it was in. So it needs to be rebuilt as it was, whether it changed location or not. It was going to get rebuilt. That's part of the reasons why my contractor was like, oh, well, there's no big deal because you're getting a permit anyways. So if anything, it is the appearance and property values are going to go up from the improvements that I've made to the property. I've had neighbors already expressing gratitude for the way I've cleaned it up. It was kind of a junkyard at the time. And I hope to further improve it. I'm going to be living on the other side. The other side has a bigger driveway, so I want to live over there.
Don't blame me.
And like I said, if I wasn't able to get the variance, I would have to find some other way, either to put another, alternate egress, whether it be just a larger window there so they could jump out a window, or a ladder. I would obviously rather there be a door, and the landing is no bigger than it is necessary to safely get in and out of the house. I'm not trying to make a deck. It's just a landing for the stairs, so you don't go straight out into the stairs.
Is that the only means right now to enter that unit and exit that unit?
The primary entrance is in the front.
Okay.
This would be on the. If you're looking at the property, this is on the left-hand side of the property.
Okay.
At present, you couldn't use it as an entrance or an exit, so.
Oh, on the left-hand side.
Well,
yeah.
I guess you could use it as an exit if you really wanted to.
Yes. Well, it did have an exit there. Like I said, it was just closer to the rear of the property. Now it's more to the center of the house, if you're on the center of that side of the house. But.
Okay. Do you want to review your variance criteria with us for the record? Those answers that you wrote in your application would not be contrary to the public interest because...
Sorry.
Just the answers to those questions.
The new landing will not encroach any further on the setback than the old landing. The new landing will replace the old unsafe landing. The location of the new landing will not alter the character of the neighborhood or threaten the health, safety, or welfare of the public.
Keep going, spirit of the
The
ordinance.
spirit of the ordinance, the exterior appearance will essentially be unchanged. The ordinance didn't exist when the house was built. The same amount of access to the backyard will remain. It will not limit the access for like fire apparatuses or anything like that. Granting the variance would do substantial injustice because the house was built in 1953 before the ordinance existed. The house is only 10 feet 9 inches from the property border. There's no way for me to comply without a variance and have a side exit from the left side unit. The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. There was already a landing between the properties. The existing landing, we're in disrepair. I know I'm repeating myself a little bit there. They were in an eyesore. Rebuilding would improve the appearance and improve the property value.
And hardship?
You
can just read what you wrote. You don't have to read the typing that's above it if you don't want to.
Denial of the ordinance would cause me substantial financial hardship and prevent me from optimizing the interior of the house. Obviously, it would affect the amount of rent I would be able to get from the house, rather having a side entrance rather than if I would be forced to put like a ladder or something. I believe it's a reasonable use because it provides a safe alternate egress out of the left side unit.
Okay. Now, the hardship is actually supposed to be based on conditions of the property that are different from others in your neighborhood. What about your property is different from others in the neighborhood?
Well, being as it was built, that close to the property line, other properties are able to have a side egress from their house. This one cannot.
So you're saying if the house, as it was built, the house, the location of the house on the lot?
Right, exactly. Because the variance didn't, the setback didn't exist at the time it was built, not able to conform. Other houses can have a side egress. I cannot conform and have a side egress.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
Is, just, when you get off the landing, which way are the stairs gonna go? It's gonna go parallel to the building? Or perpendicular?
Parallel, so towards the street. It won't go towards the other property
Okay.
any farther than it has to.
Okay.
That's the way it looks like.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm
Yes.
that. Okay. And putting it out the rear does not work with the layout of the house that's there now?
It does not, no. The backyard drops off substantially.
There's another one, hardship. But if the backyard drops off substantially. Okay. Jason, questions?
No.
Len?
No.
Okay. Are we set to deliberate? Okay, well, I've got to open the hearing to the public, and the masses back there have nothing to say, so I'm going to close the public hearing, and the board will deliberate. What's your druthers?
I think that if we don't grant this, it would cause more of a problem than anything else. I mean, that neighborhood is just compact, just like a lot of them in that area, so.
It is what a lot of neighborhoods in that end of town are, and
Neighbors are two-family as well.
I'm gonna move that we grant the variance as requested. It seems to me this is, more of a repair almost than a major modification of the property.
I'll second
So I have no problem. All right.
Okay, so we have the motion to approve from Len and the second from Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against or abstaining? I don't hear any. Motion carries. Happy construction.
Do you need this back?
Yeah.
Do I need to come back and get something?
You'll need to get a building permit, or have you already submitted?
I already have a building permit for the other stuff, so I just need to go back and get it.
I'll check on it and I'll have somebody contact you. Okay.
Perfect, thank you for your
Want this for
time.
the file?
Yes, we'll give that back to Derek for the file. Okay, our next meeting is December 7th. Save your packets, at least for the applications that will continue tonight, and bring them back. We can save a tree and some work on staff from having to print it again.
So we have.
Oh my goodness, how many
Emily,
trees?
sure.
That take.
Natalie and Emily, were there others? No, there weren't.
It was
any
nice getting this.
Emily and Nawa. Nawa.
others.
No way.
No way.
No way. Yes, we went through that last time he was here. Okay, so it's just those two, so save those, that way they don't have to print them out again. And I guess we are done if we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thirded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Now I'm
Thank you very much.
going to